For more on this, I'm joined by Preet Bharara. He's author of Doing Justice, a prosecutor's thoughts on crime, punishment, and the rule of law, and a former United States attorney for the Southern District of New York. Preet, it's great to have you here. Of course, and I will say, I've read the book. I think it's fantastic. I do want to ask you about this breaking news. Can you take a listen to what Mayor Rahm Emanuel and the superintendent of police said just a moment ago?
Sure.
You're in a position of influence and power. You'll get treated one way. Other people will be treated another way. There is no accountability then in the system. It is wrong, full stop.
If you want to say you're innocent of a situation, then you take your day in court. I would never, if someone falsely accused me, I would never hide behind a brokered deal and secrecy, period.
Preet, obviously you're a U.S. attorney. You have long experience in the law. What do you make of this development?
It's sort of hard not to know what to make of it. I'm going to do that which people have not done over the last two twists and turns in this case, and reserve judgment. I really don't know. You know, when the news first broke that Justice Mueller claimed to be a victim of a hate crime, lots and lots of people reacted swiftly based on what the evidence was at the time. That was tested, it seemed, and then we had the arrest of Justice Mueller, who was no longer, it seemed, a victim of a crime, but now a perpetrator of a crime. And then people jumped on that as well. I made some commentary at the time because it looked like the prosecutors had a very solid case, and they seemed very passionate about the case, and the police chief came out and was very angry about the case and angry about the conduct. And then here we are a few weeks later with all the charges dropped. Now that sometimes happens. You know, when you run an office, sometimes new evidence develops or you realize that it was not in the interest of justice to bring the case. But it's a pretty remarkable thing that is fairly unprecedented to see so many twists and turns that you have whiplash as an observer. And so I don't know what the truth is. It looks like from the clip we just saw that the police department and the mayor's office have a disagreement with the prosecutor's office, and that's also unusual. Usually cases are brought when both the prosecutors and the police officials think that it's proper to bring one, and they're usually dismissed when both in agreement with each other decide to dismiss the case, and so I guess the controversy will live on.
So, and just one last question on this before we're going to get to the Mueller report in just a moment, but I did want to ask if you could explain to people how that could possibly happen, where this seemingly this deal comes out of the blue, and the mayor and the superintendent are visibly very angry about the decision, but sometimes you just have to live with it.
It's really unusual. I mean, we brought cases. We considered the law enforcement agencies to be our partners. So if we brought a case with the NYPD, I was in New York obviously, or with the FBI or with the DEA, there was a consensus understanding that the case was worth bringing. And if there came a time, and it was not completely, it's not that it never, ever happened, but generally speaking, the prosecutors and the agents would agree, you know what, there's been a new development, there's been new evidence, or the case has fallen apart, or a witness has gone south, or evidence has been destroyed, or some other externality happened, and then you both agree. Now, sometimes you disagree, but this is a pretty extraordinary disagreement, and there have been so many twists and turns in the case. I think it's worth sort of taking a step back and
see
being
if we get
patient
more,
and try to
see if we get more information.
So.
Okay, Preet, stay right there. Let's bring back Preet Bharara. He is, of course, author of Doing Justice, a prosecutor's thoughts on crime, punishment, and the rule of law, and he stuck around with us. I wanted to read to you something from a former colleague of yours, Andy McCarthy, who wrote in National Review about the Mueller report and about the decision not to go forward on obstruction by Mueller. It says, on obstruction, Mueller declined to apply the law to the facts. That was the only job he was hired to do. Whether he thinks the Justice Department's decision not to charge the president is an exoneration or something less is no more relevant than what you or I think about it. What a waste. And I wonder, Preet, do you think the special counsel law worked the way that it was supposed to in this case?
It's funny you mentioned Andy McCarthy. I know him well. He was my supervisor when I was a baby prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, and there's actually a very funny anecdote in my book about Andy McCarthy that may surprise some people. I think it largely worked. I think we'll know more when we see what the Mueller report actually says, if the public ever gets to see a pretty full version of it. What you wanted to have is someone with some remove from political forces and from an administration that he was appointed to investigate, and a campaign that he was appointed to investigate. No special counsel mechanism or independent counsel mechanism is going to be perfect and is going to satisfy everyone. But obviously you have circumstances sometimes when people high up in the government itself, there's smoke and there's a need to investigate, and you need to have somebody that has some arm's length distance from that still supervised within the department. There was still Attorney General oversight, and in this case, the acting Attorney General was Rod Rosenstein. So I think overall, Bob Mueller and his team, not everyone likes what he did, not everyone likes the conclusions, and depending on what side you were on, last week you liked him, this week you don't like him, which I think one of the problems you have in America, and one of the reasons I wrote the book, to have people make sure that they understand that the law is different from politics.
I want to quote to you from your book, from a piece that I pulled out. If we could pull that up on the screen, please, that would be great. It says, a decision to decline, to walk away, is not a blessing of the conduct, but in the system we have, minimalism tends to be the best practice. So you talked in the book about, you can go forward, and if you feel like you do not have the case, you have to walk away. But you also talk a little bit about what is the public owed to understand the reasons behind the decision not to prosecute.
Yeah, there's a tremendous tension, both in good faith, a tension between wanting to make sure that you're not saying derogatory things about someone who you don't charge in an ordinary case because they have a right to defend themselves, and if there's no trial, they sort of get talked about, and then they can't really do anything to defend themselves or exonerate themselves. And on the other hand, where there are issues of great public interest for the public to have faith that the decision to go forward or not go forward was made based on the law and the facts and not on politics. And both of those considerations are appropriate. The problem is when they come into conflict with each other, especially in cases of great consequence and great moment, which you don't ordinarily have. The garden variety cases that we did, robbery cases, homicide cases, organized crime cases, someone would decide we don't have enough evidence and you quietly close the case. There are different cases where you have people who are of public prominence, or you have this issue of conspiracy potentially with Russia or with obstruction by a president. Then I think the reasons for having more disclosure are significantly more pronounced, but it's a difficult thicket to undo.
Right, because you have people that you need to protect as well. All right, Preet Bharara, congratulations on the book, and thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Fox News Alert. House Democrats demanding the Justice Department turn over the entire Mueller report 1 week from today. They're arguing the 4-page summary clearing the Trump campaign of conspiring, or collusion as some call it, with Moscow is not enough. But the top Republican in the House says it is time for Democrats to turn the page.
Sunday was a very good day for America. Regardless of where you stand politically, it's a moment in time that we got the answer to the question. It was a very clear answer: no collusion. For those who misled the American public, for those who said for more than 2 years that there is circumstantial evidence of collusion, owe America an apology. And now it's a moment of time for the Democrats to turn a page.
Meanwhile, freshman Democrat Rashida Tlaib is reportedly pushing ahead with her efforts to impeach the president by seeking co-sponsors on a resolution to determine if he has committed impeachable offenses. Joining me for the first time on Outnumbered Overtime, House Majority Whip James Clyburn, Democrat of South Carolina. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I want to start off with what's happening inside the House. I mean, the Speaker has made it very clear, no impeachment. Representative Hakeem Jeffries today saying no impeachment, that's not our focus. What do you say about some members in your party with this resolution making their own course?
Well, first of all, Harris, thank you so much for having me. Well, the members of our caucus reflect their congressional districts. And so each member comes with a mandate from his or her congressional district. They do what they think they have to do. And no one can stop me from introducing whatever resolution I want to introduce. I don't have to get a vote on it. I don't have to get support for it. But you're free to do it. But the caucus itself, I think Hakeem Jeffries speaks for the caucus. He's our chair, and what he says is what I think we are going to pursue in this matter.
Interesting. Here is the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on it exactly. Let's watch.
Impeachment is not on the table until it is on the table, so it's not a question of that. This is not about that. This is about us doing our work. Today we're introducing our health care bill. Tomorrow we'll be doing climate. It's about building infrastructure in a green way. It's about clean government. We're on our agenda. We are doing what we said we were going to do in the campaign.
So she's making it quite clear about the table. Steny Hoyer just moments ago as well, the congressman said we are the table, and it's not on the table for now. Even the president said a short while ago as he was entering that Senate Republican policy lunch just a few minutes ago, we showed it live, the president says he doesn't think Democrats are going to push ahead with this. Let's push ahead with one of the things that Nancy Pelosi was talking about, though, and that is health care. The Justice Department just said, upheld a ruling that the Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional. Nancy Pelosi and others on the Hill like yourself getting ready to drop that legislation for health care to protect the ACA without the Medicare for All mandate. Your thoughts on where this is going?
Well, I think that the Justice Department has just filed a lawsuit asking the court to declare the Affordable Care Act as being unconstitutional. That runs awry as what the president said time and time again. He told us he will protect people with pre-existing conditions. Now he's saying the one law that protects people with pre-existing conditions, his Justice Department is now asking the Supreme Court to get rid of it. So it seems to me that the president is not being consistent here. We in our caucus are very consistent. We believe that people with pre-existing conditions ought to be protected. I believe very strongly that little children born with diabetes ought to be able to come on their families' insurance policies if they are sick. I believe very strongly that a woman with breast cancer, a man with prostate cancer should not be allowed to be kicked off their insurance policies once they get sick. We are going to fight for that. We're going to be putting in a bill or having a press conference at 2:30 today to talk more about that.
All right, and we'll be watching for the news to be made.
Good.
I want to get to this very quickly. What is the significance of April 2nd, a week from today, in terms of trying to get the full Mueller report? Why do you have any concern that William Barr's interpretation or summary thereof, no collusion, is not enough?
Well, simply because I think people are saying that this full-page summary was forecast by Mr. Barr during his hearings. And so what we would like to do is
Wait. I have to stop you there. Are you saying that the AG Barr is not telling the truth when he says that he received a report on Friday from Mueller? He looked at it. It's his job as special counsel in this instance to take a look at that and then give a summary. Are you saying that that's not how it happened?
No, I'm saying he's doing exactly what he said he would do, and that is he would release as much of it as he possibly could. So maybe this is all that he possibly can.
And is that enough?
Not for us. We want to see the full report. Give us the full report. Let us make up our own minds. We do have brains on our side of the aisle.
Of course,
and I think that we can think about these things.
Real quickly, could you understand, though, that if that doesn't come, according to polling, I mean, it looks like it's time for some Americans, they say, to move on from this. Even Democrats have said when we get the Mueller findings, which you've gotten through that 4-page report from the AG, that you would move on. I don't understand what you're still pressing for.
We are moving on. That's why we have the press conference today at 2:30 to talk about the Affordable Care Act. That's why I will be, I am meeting. I had a meeting just an hour ago with people talking about broadband deployment, trying to put in a new infrastructure bill that we hope we can get cooperation from the other side of the aisle. We want to see roads and bridges, but we also want to see water and sewage, broadband deployment, school construction. That's where we are going. You're the one that's camping out with Mueller. We've gone on from that.
Well, but there are 6 Democratic committee heads, House Democratic committee heads, calling for a full look at the Mueller report on April 2nd. It isn't me, sir. I'm not making it up. I want to have you back, though. We've got some breaking news. Majority Whip James Clyburn on the program.